Malik Stone wasn't just a man, he was a legend in the streets of Johannesburg. 29, tall, dark, built like sin and twice as dangerous. Every woman wanted him, married, single, rich, broke, it didn't matter. They all whispered his name like a secret they wanted to keep and a sin they wanted to repeat. Before we begin, please subscribe to my YouTube channel and hit the notification button as we proceed. In Johannesburg, names carried weight. But Malik Stone's name? It carried heat. You didn't just hear about him, you felt him before you even saw him. He wasn't loud or flashy. He didn't need to be. The man walked like a rhythm, slow, smooth, unbothered, and the world adjusted its pace to match. When he entered a room, conversations tripped. Glasses paused midair. Eyes lingered a little too long. There was something magnetic about the way he carried silence, like he knew exactly what people were thinking and liked it. He was tall, dark, and built with that kind of calm confidence that made people whisper things they shouldn't. Every rumor about him sounded exaggerated until you met him. Then you realized, no, they actually underplayed it. To the men, Malik was a threat they couldn't name. To the women, he was temptation made flesh. He didn't chase. He never needed to. Married women found excuses to bump into him at the gym. Club girls lost their balance when he looked their way. Even CEOs' wives, women who ruled boardrooms, turned soft when his voice brushed against their skin. But Malik wasn't reckless. He was selective, strategic. He played the game like chess, never forcing a move, just waiting for his opponents to offer themselves up. And they always did. People said he'd never been turned down. That once you locked eyes with Malik Stone, resistance became a theory. He had a way of reading desire like language, slow, deliberate, fluent. But behind the quiet smirk and clean-cut suits, there was a deeper story. A dangerous kind of loneliness. Malik didn't believe in love, not really. He believed in control. The body, the moment, the reaction, that was his art. And power? That was his drug. He'd grown up with nothing. A mother who prayed too much, a father who ran too early. The streets had been his teacher, and charm his survival tool. By 29, he'd built himself from nothing into something, part real estate hustler, part social icon, part urban myth. People called him the Stone Effect. Clubs filled when he arrived. Brands begged him to appear. He turned down modeling deals, music video cameos, everything. He didn't need to be famous, he already was. Still, there was something unspoken about the way people talked about him. They said no woman walked away the same. They said he didn't just touch bodies, he changed them. And while the city worshipped the legend, Malik wore it like armor. He knew the rules. Never catch feelings, never repeat the same woman, and never, ever get caught in daylight. But the universe has a way of humbling the untouchable. That night, the air in Sandton was thick, a summer storm brewing somewhere far off, the sky bruised purple. Malik was leaving a five-star hotel, his shirt slightly unbuttoned, that usual lazy smirk on his lips. The woman he'd just left behind was someone's wife, a politician's actually, but Malik didn't care. He never did. As he crossed the street to his car, an old woman sitting by the corner stall called out, "Stone boy." He paused. No one called him that anymore. She was small, wrapped in a patterned shawl, eyes sharp beneath her wrinkles. Her table was cluttered with herbs, beads, and candles. She looked like someone time had forgotten, but her gaze pinned him, unblinking. "Son," she said softly, "pride fed by pleasure dies in shame." He chuckled, the kind of low laugh that usually made women melt. "You selling warnings now, mama?" Her expression didn't shift. "No, I'm selling truth. But truth don't sell fast in your kind of world." He smirked, tossed a few notes on her table. "Keep the truth, then. Buy something nice." "Money can't buy mercy," she whispered as he turned away. He didn't look back. Didn't have to. Malik Stone didn't believe in curses, only consequences he could handle. But that night, as he loosened his tie in front of his mirror, something odd happened. A sharp crack split the silence. The glass fractured, clean through his reflection. He stared, heart suddenly still. The crack ran straight across his face, dividing it in two. Half smile, half shadow. He didn't sleep well that night. And by morning, the legend of Malik Stone, the man every woman wanted, was about to meet the one thing he'd never faced before. Something he couldn't charm. Something he couldn't control. Himself. Malik woke before dawn, sweat slick on his skin though the air was cold. For the first time in years, his reflection didn't greet him with that easy confidence. It stared back like a stranger. The crack on the mirror was still there, running across his face like a warning he didn't want to understand. He brushed it off. Maybe it was exhaustion. Too many nights, too many faces, too much noise. But deep down, something inside him felt unsteady. He dressed slow, fitted black shirt, watch glinting under the dim light. By the time he stepped outside, the city was already waking up. Johannesburg always sounded like ambition, engines, horns, and hearts that never stopped racing. He slipped into his BMW, that low hum vibrating beneath him like control itself. But when he checked his phone, there were messages, 3 missed calls from the woman from last night. He didn't bother to reply. Malik never called twice. Still, as he drove, he kept seeing flashes of the old woman's face in his mind, the way her voice had cut through the night. Pride fed by pleasure dies in shame. It shouldn't have stuck with him. But it did. By the weekend, the energy around him had changed. The whispers, the looks, they still came, but something was off. He could feel it in the way people's gazes lingered too long, like they sensed a shift even he couldn't name. He met Thandi that night, an art curator, the kind of woman who always looked like she had secrets of her own. They'd met before at an exhibition, but this time, she made the first move. She touched his wrist, leaned close, whispered something only he could hear. The air between them felt charged, familiar. Everything unfolded like it always did, until it didn't. When the moment came, when everything was supposed to align, it didn't. His body, the same body that once answered every signal with precision, betrayed him. Completely. For the first time, Malik froze. She laughed softly at first, thinking he was teasing. But when silence stretched too long, her smile faded. "You okay?" she asked. He forced a smirk, shrugged it off. "Too much whiskey." It was a lie, one he told easily. But inside, panic was spreading like fire under his skin. He left before dawn, without his usual calm, without his rhythm. And when he got home, he couldn't look in the mirror. Days turned to weeks. The same thing kept happening. Every time he tried, his body refused. The hunger, the control, the rhythm, the doctors found nothing. No stress, no illness, no explanation. Everything normal. But Malik knew better. It wasn't physical. It was personal. By the second week, the rumors started. Johannesburg was small like that, full of whispers that moved faster than truth. They say Malik's lost his touch. He's different now. Maybe karma caught up. The same women who used to fight for his attention now scrolled past his name like it was bad luck. The same men who used to envy him now laughed quietly in bars. For someone else, it might have been humiliation. For Malik, it was worse. It was silence. That heavy, echoing kind of silence that filled every room he entered. He tried everything. Supplements. Doctors. Energy healers. Even returned to the same street where he'd met the old woman, but she was gone. The stall empty, candles burnt to stubs. At night, he started dreaming, always the same dream. He'd walk through a room full of mirrors, but none of them showed his face. Only shadows, blurred, faceless versions of himself. And then her voice again. "Son, pride fed by pleasure dies in shame." He'd wake up gasping. The city still called his name, but not the same way. The legend of Malik Stone had begun to fade. And what was left behind wasn't the myth, it was the man. And the man was terrified. For 3 nights straight, Malik barely slept. The city outside kept pulsing like a heartbeat he could no longer match. Once, he'd moved through Johannesburg like a current, confident, untouchable, feeding off the world's desire. Now every look, every whisper felt like a mirror reflecting back his fall. He told himself it was temporary. A phase. Maybe stress, maybe burnout. But deep down, something darker was crawling under his skin, that quiet fear no doctor could name. The first real test came when Zinel called. She was a widow, older, elegant, the kind of woman who never begged for attention but always got it. She'd once told him, "You're addictive, Malik. Dangerous in all the ways that make sense when the lights go out." He'd laughed then. But now her voice on the phone carried a weight he couldn't shake. She invited him over. He said yes, maybe out of pride, maybe desperation. If he could be with her again, maybe he wasn't broken. The night was soft, full of perfume and jazz and all the things that used to make him feel alive. Her hands found him the way they always had, slow, deliberate, certain. For a moment, the fire flickered again. The heat, the promise, the old rhythm trying to crawl back. But it didn't last. It was like his body forgot how to respond. The connection between want and willpower had been severed. Her touch no longer awakened him, it exposed him. Zinel sat up, confused at first, then careful. She tried to smile, to make it easy. "It's okay," she whispered. But her voice carried something else, pity. And pity was poison to Malik Stone. He left in silence, his shirt half-buttoned, his pride dragging behind him like a ghost. By morning it was everywhere. He didn't know who spoke first, but the city already had a story that Malik had lost his magic. That the man every woman wanted could no longer satisfy any. It spread like wildfire. From salons to shisha lounges, from gym locker rooms to WhatsApp groups. His name became entertainment. He stopped going out. Stopped answering calls. Even Daniel, his closest friend, couldn't reach him. At night, the silence in his penthouse was too loud. He'd sit on the edge of his bed, hands over his face, trying to remember who he was before his body made him a myth. But there was no answer, just echoes of laughter that didn't sound like his own. The mirror cracked again. He didn't touch it this time. One evening, a doctor he barely trusted looked over his test results and said, "There's nothing wrong with you physically. Whatever this is, it's mental or spiritual." That word, spiritual, lingered long after he left the clinic. He started noticing strange things. Lights flickering when he entered a room. Whispers in dreams that weren't his thoughts. And always the same voice repeating, "You can't take from hearts and call it power." He went looking for the old woman again. Searched the streets, the markets, anywhere he could remember. But no one had seen her. Some said there was never an old woman there, only a vendor who'd died months before. That night, Malik sat on the floor, staring at his reflection in a dark TV screen. He wasn't the man women whispered about anymore. He was a man stripped bare, of control, of pride, of the illusion that pleasure meant power. The curse wasn't just in his body. It was in his name. And as he realized that, something broke inside him, not loud, not sudden, just quiet and final. The legend of Malik Stone ended that night. What came next was the man's reckoning. Days bled into nights, and Johannesburg stopped whispering. It started laughing. Malik Stone, once the man whose name women said in secret and men envied in silence, had become a myth turned meme. His fall was too poetic to ignore. In clubs, bartenders joked about it. The legend lost his lightning, they'd say, clinking glasses. Women who once melted at his smile now looked through him, pretending not to remember. Some still messaged him, not out of desire, but curiosity, like tourists visiting ruins. Malik tried to play it cool at first. He walked into bars like nothing had changed, kept his same walk, same smirk. But the eyes followed him differently now. Not with hunger, with judgment. It was unbearable. At home, his walls closed in. The silence wasn't peaceful anymore. It was punishment. He tried everything he could think of, doctors, supplements, even whispered rituals in the dead of night. He found a herbalist in Soweto who promised him a revival. 3 bottles, 6 roots, 7 days. Nothing. He found another, a spiritual healer this time, all incense and riddles. "You've been taking what wasn't freely given," she told him, eyes like smoke. "Pleasure carries a spirit. You've turned it into debt." He left before she finished. He couldn't bear hearing it. But her words followed him home anyway. By week 3, Malik stopped answering Daniel's calls. He couldn't face his best friend, Not when Daniel had always warned him that power without balance would eat him alive. Now it was happening. He avoided mirrors. Avoided people. The legend was dissolving, and underneath, he didn't know who was left. Until one night, the whispers returned. He was half asleep when he heard it, soft, almost kind. The voice from before, the old woman's voice. You still think it's about your body, boy, but your curse isn't in your flesh. It's in your heart. Heal that, and everything else will follow. He jolted awake, chest heaving. The apartment was empty, too empty. The city lights outside flickered against the glass, but he swore for a moment he saw her reflection there, faint and smiling. The next morning he decided to test his sanity. He drove to the gym, hoping routine might fix him. But even there, the air was different. Men stopped mid-set to glance at him, whispering. 2 women at the smoothie bar giggled when he walked past. Malik felt the ground tilt under him, like he'd been erased and replaced with a rumor. Later that evening, a woman he once knew, a married client, bold and beautiful, texted him. I heard the rumors. Want to prove them wrong. It was bait. Pride wanted to say yes. But something deep inside stopped him. Instead, he deleted the message. For the first time in years, he walked away. That small act, quiet, defiant, shook him more than any conquest ever had. Because it didn't come from pride. It came from exhaustion. From wanting to feel free. That night, Malik sat in the dark, watching the city hum below. His life had always been noise, desire, ego, validation. Now all he wanted was silence that didn't hurt. When Daniel finally showed up at his door, Malik didn't resist. His friend just stared at him, eyes tired but kind. You look like hell, bro. I earned it, Malik said softly. Daniel didn't laugh. He just sat beside him, letting the silence breathe between them. Whatever this is, he said, you can't fix it chasing what broke it. Malik exhaled slowly. Then what am I supposed to chase? Something real. It sounded simple. Too simple. But it stuck. And for the first time in years, Malik realized he didn't need to conquer anything. Maybe he just needed to learn himself. The curse hadn't taken his manhood, it had forced him to see what it meant. He looked out at the city again, bright, loud, unforgiving. And for the first time, he didn't want to be its legend. He just wanted to be human. The next morning, Malik woke before dawn. The city was still half asleep, its skyline bruised in shades of purple and gold. For the first time in months, he didn't reach for his phone, didn't check the news or the whispers. He just stood at his window and breathed. He didn't know where to start, only that he had to. He remembered the old woman's words, earn love without touching it. At the time, he'd thought it was impossible. But now, impossibility felt cleaner than the shame he'd been living in. So he started small. He called Daniel, asked him to meet at the hospital in Soweto where they'd once sponsored a health project years ago, a PR stunt he'd barely paid attention to. But this time, he went himself. No cameras, no entourage. That's where he met Ayanda. She wasn't what Malik expected. No flirty smiles, no nervous glances. She didn't seem to care who he was, or had been. Her uniform was simple, her face calm but alert, her words sharp enough to cut through pity. Mr. Stone, she said, not even looking up from her clipboard. You're late. He blinked. You know me. Everyone knows you, she said dryly. The question is, what are you here for? He hesitated, caught off guard. To help, I guess. Good, she said. Then grab those boxes. And no, you don't get a pass because you're famous. Something in her tone disarmed him. For the first time in a long while, Malik wasn't being admired or desired. He was being useful. Days turned into weeks. He came back, not because he had to, but because he wanted to. He started helping with supplies, fixing shelves, organizing outreach events. The nurses teased him at first, the fallen legend stacking boxes, but he didn't mind. Every sweat-soaked afternoon felt like shedding another layer of the man he used to be. And Ayanda watched him change. She'd catch him laughing with the kids, quietly sponsoring patients' bills, listening more than he spoke. One day she asked, "Why are you really doing this?" He looked at her and said, Because I've spent years taking from people. I think it's time I gave something back. For a moment, something flickered in her eyes, a hint of respect, maybe even warmth. But she just nodded and went back to work. Still, something in Malik shifted that day. The same energy he used to chase women, that restless hunger, began to turn inward. He didn't crave attention anymore. He craved peace. And Ayanda, without trying, gave him that. One evening, after a long day at the clinic, they sat outside watching the sun dip over the dusty rooftops. She told him about her father, a man who'd spent his life helping others but died broke, rich in heart, poor in wallet. Malik listened quietly, realizing how different his version of wealth had been. When she finally turned to him and said, "You remind me of him now," something inside him healed a little. He went home that night and stood in front of his mirror, the same one that had once cracked. The glass was still scarred, but his reflection looked steady. Not perfect, just real. He smiled to himself. The next day, he visited the same corner where he'd once met the old woman. The market was noisy and crowded, but she wasn't there. Only a young boy selling charms. "She left months ago," the boy said. "Said her work here was done." Malik nodded slowly, a strange calm spreading through him. Maybe she'd been real. Maybe not. But her words had carried him through the storm, and now he finally understood. The curse hadn't been about punishment. It had been about revelation. A week later, Daniel met him for coffee, eyeing him curiously. "You look lighter, man. Happier." Malik chuckled softly. "Maybe I stopped performing." Daniel grinned. "And the Ouya situation?" Malik smirked. "Fixed itself. But funny thing? I don't even care anymore." Daniel laughed so hard people turned to stare. "Bro, you've gone soft." "Maybe," Malik said. "But soft feels better than hollow." That evening, Malik visited the hospital one last time. Ayanda was outside, organizing supplies. When she saw him, she smiled. A real one this time. "Leaving already?" she asked. "For now," he said. "Got a few things to build. But I'll be back." "Good," she said. "You're actually useful." He laughed. "That's the nicest thing anyone's ever said to me." She grinned, shaking her head. "You really are something else, Malik Stone." "Not anymore," he said quietly. "Just Malik." And as he walked away, the evening wind carried a quiet peace, not the thrill of conquest, but the calm of redemption. And for the first time, Malik didn't need to prove he was a man. He was one. Thank you for watching. Hit the subscribe button and turn on your notifications for more interesting stories. See you next time. Bye.